Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Mayday Network. I'm Michelle Kinney. I'm here with Julie Roginsky. You are watching the Daily Dispatch, and we have some breaking news that Congressman Eric Swalwell has resigned from Congress. I have his statement here. I'll read this. Um, Quote, I am deeply sorry to my family, staff, and constituents for mistakes and judgment I've made in my past. I will fight the serious false allegation made against me. However, I must take responsibility and ownership for the mistakes I did make. I am aware of efforts to bring an immediate expulsion vote against me and other members. Expelling anyone in Congress without due process within days of an allegation being made is wrong. But it's also wrong for my constituents to have me distracted from my duties. Therefore, I plan to resign my seat in Congress. I will work with my staff in the coming days to ensure they are able, in my absence, to serve the needs of the good people of the 14th Congressional District.
Well, there's a lot
Julie.
going on here.
Yeah.
The first thing I would say is, as I said on MS Now, today I have been in touch with the main. There was 4 women that came forward. I think another one was coming forward in the next few hours, from what I read. But the main one, the former staffer, and I have been in touch for days now.
Yeah.
And she was prepared to speak to the ethics committee under oath.
Mm-hmm.
And I suspect she's going to be subpoenaed by the district attorney's office here in
Absolutely.
New York. Investigation. That's nothing Eric Swalwell can stop, but he can
Yeah, I
certainly.
was like, and I hope that still happens. I'm sure it
Yeah.
will.
I mean,
Yeah.
that train has left the station. But in terms of the ethics committee will not launch an investigation into you if you are no longer in Congress. They don't do retroactive investigations. So, as much as he wants to say this is not about distraction and yada yada and due
Yeah, sure.
process, he could have due process. He could
Yeah.
have the ethics committee look into this.
Mm-hmm.
I think he knows that that's not a good idea. I think he knows what that due process is going to show.
Mm-hmm.
And
It's going to open a can of worms that, yeah.
and it is just the most logical sense for him personally, and for any hope he has of saving his family and his
Mm-hmm.
marriage. I don't know anything about his marriage, so I my heart breaks for his wife and his kids.
Yeah, mostly, yeah, even, I mean, I was just thinking about his kids too. I was like, for as long as they live, they will have to, someone asks, what does your dad do? Who is your dad? And they're going to have to say, my dad is Eric Swalwell. He's a former congressman. He was accused of raping his staffer.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know what they're going
horrible.
to say, but anytime somebody Googles them, that's what's
Yeah, I mean, that's what I mean, like anything like that. Yeah, I mean,
awful. And to put his kids in that situation is awful. But I will say that if he has any hope of salvaging anything,
mm-hmm.
he does not want to get expelled by Congress. And he would get expelled. I mean, this is not a...
Absolutely.
It takes years. It could be years from now, but I think he understands that he can't run. He'd have a primary. Like, it's over for him. It's going to be over for him in January. This is just moving up the timeline by 9 months or so.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say this: he is a this statement. Could you just put it up again? Because I actually want to go through it line by line.
Absolutely. This is what you do, right, Julie? I mean, you help candidates or representatives, right?
I do crisis management for politicians.
Mm-hmm.
So I could read between the lines here, and I can tell you what happens.
Mm-hmm.
The mistakes response. He's been very amorphous about the mistakes that he did make. Right. He first implied that they're between him and his wife. And I was trying to be very clear about something. I don't care if you cheat on your wife. The only person who should care is your wife. I don't care. I don't care if members of Congress cheat on their wives. I know some people disagree with me on that. It's sensual.
I mean, go. Cheating happens for all different kinds of reasons, right? Some people are scumbags, and sometimes things happen. But you know what I mean? And it's more of a character issue for me than anything else. But I care way less about that than obviously I would about something like this.
I just don't care. I legit don't care.
Yeah.
This is not about cheating. So this is not about his wife. This is about, at best, if you were to believe him, because he never denied he had sex with a direct report, that is against the rules in the House. I just want to be very clear. In 2018, a law was passed by Congress, or by the House, excuse me, for their own ethics stuff, that says that you cannot have any kind of relationship with, even if it's consensual, with anybody who is an employee, a volunteer, an intern, or whatever, seconded to your office. Anyway, if they're a direct report, if they're a report to you of some sort, can't do it. That's a problem for him, because he never denied that there was a relationship there.
Yeah.
And that would get him probably expelled anyway, or at least censured. So it'd be pretty much over anyway. So that's the best case scenario. That is if you believe that this woman went into this with eyes wide open, that she was totally, fine, so on and so forth. I will say there was a second woman who came forward, and nobody's focusing on this, who is also anonymous, who said, same story. The two of them did not know each other or speak to each other, but said to CNN that she also went out for drinks with him, woke up the next morning having no idea where she was, what was going on, feels like she had been drugged. I mean, she didn't say that she was drugged, but felt like she was, roofied. And was totally out of it, which is very similar to the story that this woman tells. And the reason I say all this is because if there's two, there's three. If there's three, there's five. If this is somebody who does this, he does this. So it was the facts were not getting any better for him. Like they were not going to get any better for him. And he did the right thing by resigning. I will say, Tony Gonzalez, whose aide committed suicide, Congressman Gonzalez, whose aide committed suicide, Republican of Texas, after he strung her along and had a sexual relationship with her. And another woman came forward saying the same. He has not resigned because Mike Johnson doesn't want him to resign. So now the Republicans, because they are complete and utter scumbags, have one extra seat in the House now that Swalwell's gone. Now, there's going to be a special election on Thursday for Mikey Sherrill's seat in New Jersey 11. We'll see when Speaker Johnson swears in the new Democrat that's about to get elected, because she will get elected, Ana Lilia Mejia. I'm sure she's ready to go on Monday. I'm sure he'll probably drag this out again like he did for Grijalva in Arizona.
These people are...
But because they're awful. But, there is a political dimension to this that is separate and apart from Swalwell, which is there is a big old difference between Swalwell and the two Republicans who have been accused of serious misconduct, Corey Mills and Tony Gonzalez, and neither of them is resigning. So if you want to know whose party's, where now.
It's hard to even... These people don't care about anything except power. That's the thing. These people will, at any cost, yeah, have an iron grip,
yeah,
on power. The current president of the United States, the current occupant of the White House, has been mentioned over 1 million times in the Epstein files that have been released, which are only 3 million of the 6 million, with accusations of sexual assault and rape of children. And they're doing anything, flailing in the air, twisting themselves into pretzels to make excuses, to, let me get out your fainting couches about Eric Swalwell, which they've all been running their mouths about they love this. They love this. And here's the thing, we're doing the right thing. Democrats are doing the right thing. The thing that does worry me and concern me is how long has this been going on? How many people knew about his behavior and just didn't say anything? I don't know. Maybe people didn't know. But when I see staffers saying, I was an intern in 2018 on the Hill, and on day 3, I was told to stay away from Eric Swalwell.
I worked on the Hill a very long time ago. 25 years ago. Now, though, God, 26 years, 25 years ago. Actually, it was 25 years ago. So way before the Me Too movement. But I was in my late 20s. I was 27 or so. And 26, 27, 6, 7.
The olds have ruined it. We've ruined it.
Yeah, we ruined it. You knew, I mean, you kind of knew who the bad guys were, but it wasn't really talked about back then because we just kind of assumed that was the way it was going to be.
Right. Well, and it's, I mean, to go back even further, right? When the press kind of crossed that threshold into, investigative reporting on a politician's personal life with Gary Hart, right? I mean, that was kind of like the beginning of, and that was just extramarital stuff, right? I mean, that was, and I believe, yes, that was someone who, like, there was people who work for, whatever, it doesn't matter.
No, he was having an affair with she was not working for him, but she was not. But what he did was stupidly, he denied it and he said, "Follow me if you don't believe me." And the press is like, "Okay, we'll follow you." And sure enough,
kept right. Hubris.
They caught her sitting on his lap on a boat.
That's the other thing here, and not to go down the rabbit hole about other members here, because I'm not going to do that today. But I will say that, I've had friends in other states reach out to me in the last 24 hours about other politicians on our side who've had questionable behavior, and one of which might be thinking about, a presidential run. And I'm like, the hubris, I don't even know, like, it's to just kind of leave breadcrumbs everywhere, like Eric Swalwell was, obviously. And then just to be so arrogant that you're just going to continue to climb the ladder and no one's going to say anything. Because why? Because you're a congressperson? Because you're a senator and, like, women will be too scared? Like, do you think people don't keep stuff on their phones, like text messages and photographs and things like that? It's so wild to me that someone probably has an Oppo book on you the size of a New York City
if they don't,
book,
they will.
if those still existed. Yeah.
If they don't, they will. And it's not just that. It's not even Oppo. It's, people are like, why do these women come forward now? Why do they come forward now? Let me explain something. First of all, I'm sure they came forward now, some of them. And I did not ask this question of the woman I spoke to. So this is just me. This is a hypothesis. Nothing to do with anything I learned. Yeah. I'm sure that some of them came forward now because they did not want him to be governor of the most populous, largest state in the nation. Like, that's a big promotion. So
huge. The fifth largest economy in the world.
Second, we don't know when they went to the press on this. For all we know, they went to the press on this before he even filed, when they got inkling that he was going to run. And then you have to understand, former press secretary here, I can tell you, on a story like this, they're not going to just do a one-off. So they're going to talk to other people. They're going to do a whole investigation. And then they're going to call Eric Swalwell for comment. Eric Swalwell's lawyers will get involved and they'll say, we're going to sue you into oblivion if you publish this. So then they have to go back to the women and they have to get more evidence because their lawyers, their own newspapers or CNN are telling them that you need to have more and more before you could run with the story, because we don't want to get sued if this is some sort of something.
Right.
And that takes weeks or months. And most of the time, these stories get killed whenever somebody threatens to sue because people just don't want to deal with it's not worth it, right? So think about the evidence these women had to produce to get this in the paper and on CNN. And that is not up to them. That is up to whenever the San Francisco Chronicle and CNN decided to run the story. So I just, for anybody who's like, because he was leading the polls, no wonder the story came out. Nobody put this on Substack. Right. Okay? Like, nobody put this on Substack. Right? Like, it wasn't like somebody's like, let me tweet this out and see where the chips fall. This went through rigorous legal review. Rigorous.
Which I gotta give it to Brian Stetler at CNN. He tweeted something today that I was just like, he was like, this story is so major, and like, thank God for the investigative journalism for uncovering this story. And I was like, okay, yes, for reporting the story eventually, but I just really want to be clear here that the only reason they were reporting on this is because there was other young women who came forward and stepped in front of them and said, I'm going to vouch for them, like Miss Frazzled on Twitter and Instagram and others. Like, that is where this came from the Me Too movement. That's where this came from, originated. And because of people like Julie kind of, clearing a path for other women to come forward. That's where this is, and listen, again, yes, of course, props to the journalists who had to do all their due diligence and sourcing and everything. Okay, great. But the truth here is it was the women. That is why. That is why.
Yeah. And so, and by the way, thank God this ran now and not when he was going to be the Democratic nominee.
For real.
California, and I have to explain this to people because I don't think people understand this. California is something called a jungle primary, which means that partisanship doesn't matter, which means that the two highest vote getters move on to the general election. The two highest vote getters very well were, at some point a month or two ago, the two Republicans, because there's so many Democrats running that they were all splitting the vote. So that you have Steve Hilton, who's a Fox News Rupert Murdoch guy who worked for the Conservative Party in England and just moved to California maybe like 10 years ago.
Yeah, new.
Now is in a position to potentially move to the general election, and another Republican is potentially in the position to move to the general election. So believe me, if Eric Swalwell had been the person who was in first or second place, because this other person is going to be a Republican. There's just too many Democratic candidates. It's going to be Steve Hilton, most likely. So if it was going to be Eric Swalwell and Steve Hilton, and it was a general election, what do you think was going to happen when this story came out? He would have dropped out of the race. And then California would have gone red.
This is where I wish
you could like before you think this is some sort of like Republican MAGA ploy, they would have loved for Swalwell to stay in the race.
Yeah.
They would have loved for him to stay in the race. Now, not only that, but by dropping out, his votes are going to reallocate most likely. I mean, there's a whole bunch of people running, but most likely either to Tom Steyer or to Katie Porter. And that means that one of them is going to rise up, hopefully enough, to get into the general. And that it's not going to be two Republicans. The fewer Democrats, the better, my friends. That's what you don't understand. Otherwise, we're going to have two Republicans running against each other.
And that's where I wish the Democrats could, I mean, this is just wishful thinking, could kind of put all their heads together and be like, listen, it's really important we have a Democrat that wins. So like, let's all drop out and put our weight behind these people. And, but ego and everything else, people aren't going to do that.
I mean, look, I got to tell you, like the bullshit of people being like, this is it, this is MAGA's coming. Don't you understand? This is exactly what Republicans say every time there's an allegation against Trump. Oh, this is the liberal media. This is the, anti-Trumpers. This is the crazy. This is a conspiracy. Everything's a conspiracy. This is deep state. Like, why can't we just admit that sometimes the guy that you like politically is a scumbag?
Yeah.
Because trust
me, everybody, obviously, but a lot of them are.
Everybody. Listen, I worked for, in my 20s, the best Democratic men back to back that you could possibly work for. I've always said this. My first boss, Congressman Pallone, still in Congress, the best. If you have ever an opportunity to work for him, run, do not walk. Just a mensch, right? And treated not just women with respect, but a little 23-year-old with respect. Like,
yeah,
just wonderful. And then I went to work for another man named Joe Doria, who had once studied to be a priest, very, very spiritual.
Yeah.
And was just wonderful. Same thing, just a wonderful, wonderful man. Can't see enough good stuff about him. And then I went to work for a bunch of assholes because eventually you run out, your luck runs out, as they do. And that's just the case. And so I want to just say that all the people that I worked for who were assholes were Democrats. And you probably would agree with them on everything politically.
Yep.
But they just weren't good guys, some of them. And it doesn't matter what they preach, and it doesn't matter how they vote in Congress, because understand, there are other people who will vote that same way.
Who are vetted. And that's the other thing. Is like, where are we vetting these people? Where's the party on this?
Well, the party doesn't vet because, they expect the Oppo people to vet for them.
I know, but like, I mean, at some point, like the Oppo people aren't doing enough.
I mean, anyone can run, right?
Right.
So it's not like you're gonna, but
yeah. Eric Swalwell is one of those people that like I always had like a weird feeling about, but I certainly didn't know anything. Like he's just like a kind of a media whore and like really into himself. And
well, I told you that story. Yeah.
What's that?
Go ahead. I interrupted you, but go ahead.
No. I remember when he was going to announce that he was going to run for president. And I remember there was, I forget where it was. There was a clip of him that he posted and he was jogging in Central Park. And he's jogging, and he stops. And he's like, I'm going to run to the whatever. And it was just like this kind of tease that he was going to run for president. I was like, what? That's like so weird and cringe. Like it's weird. And Andrew Yang, I don't know if you saw, I mean, I'm not his biggest fan, but he wrote something.
I'm not his smallest fan, but go ahead.
Wait, what'd you say?
I'm not even his smallest fan, but I mean, I'm like,
I'm not
be a fan ever, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm not my cup of tea. But he said that during one of the debates, Eric Swalwell, he's like, I was at a debate with him and he was going after Joe Biden on this, that. And he said during the commercial that Joe Biden walked over to Eric Swalwell and kind of went up and like held onto his lapels and said something like, I don't know what it was exactly, because now that I'm quoting it, now I forgot. But it was something like, we're not going to do this or something. And Eric Swalwell just kind of fell in line and, that was that. But he's just like, it seems like a very unserious person and like kind of not an intellectual heavyweight in any way either. So not that that's a prerequisite anymore, but and now it's just like all those icks. He gives me the icks. And now all those icks, mean something. Now we know where they originate. And there is something else, like there's this kind of mental part of this too, that to watch that video back and forth. And I know that I said the other day that he doesn't blink through the whole thing, but also there's like this deadness in his eyes, and he has absolutely no remorse, none, for anything that he's done.
He is, I think I said this, I saw him, I ran into him at CNN about a year ago. For all I know, it was the same day that he was in question, because I think the timeline adds up, but I don't know how often he was in New York at CNN. Anyway, I ran into him at CNN in the morning, one morning. And I think I was just getting off the air and he was getting on. And I as I was walking out, I saw him and I said, he had just done something. I can't remember what he did, but it was something that I liked, like some statement about Trump or something. He did something kind of, newsworthy. And I said, Congressman, and he actually knew my name, I guess. I don't know how, but he's like, Julie, good to meet you. I'm Eric Swalwell. And I said, Congressman, good to see you. Oh, no. Call me Eric. I said, okay, fine, whatever. And I said, listen, I just want to I want to thank you for whatever it was that he just did. Like, thanks for standing up for us. Mm-hmm. And it's not that he was, it is way too broad to say that he was hitting on me. He was definitely not hitting on me. I also have a wedding ring. Not that he cares, but maybe he cares. Also, I am about at least 25 years too old for him, possibly 30. But actually, I'm 30 years too old for him.
Yeah.
But But it was just that weird, like, you kind of know when somebody's like just. And I remember coming home and telling my husband, who I don't even talk to about this kind of stuff because whatever.
I know.
I was like, yeah, I ran into Eric Swalwell today. He's like, oh, I like that guy. I go, yeah, there's something about him. And he's like, what? And I was like, I don't know. He's like, did he hit on you? And I was like, no. And he's like, well, what is it then? And I was like, something's up. And my husband, of course, like a guy's like, well, I don't get it. Like,
it's women's intuition though. Like you just, there's something off. And like when your gut tells you something is off, you're usually not wrong. There's something. Don't know what it is yet, but there's something not right.
Yeah, there's something. There's something. You know what's not right? I knew that if I were 30 years younger, that would be a very different discussion.
Yes.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yep.
And that's a problem. And women get that, especially women when they're like middle-aged, like I am, like they still pick up that vibe that if this were a while ago.
Yep.
And the funny thing is, when I was speaking to the survivor, I said, he's not married, right? She's like, oh no, he's married. I go, he is?
Oh yeah.
And she said, yeah. I said, wow, I did not get that vibe from him. I said, does he wear a ring? She said, oh yeah, he wears a big gold, ring on his finger. And I said, really? Because I could have sworn the vibe that he was kind of giving, it was kind of like a little bit of a close talker. Like, I can't even describe it. I don't know.
Close talker thing I've heard from many people.
Women on this chat, you know what I'm talking about. When you know, you know. Even though I could not describe.
I'm seeing it. People say I can, yep.
Yeah.
People are like, oh yeah, when you know, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny that you say, Siobhan, that he talks about his family all the time. He just struck me as a single guy about town.
Like a wannabe Don Draper, kind of.
Yeah, who was also married.
Right, that's what I mean.
Yeah, exactly.
It's almost like the family was for show. And I mentioned this the other day too, when all this started to break, is that when the rumors started to swirl online and like more and more of like the women's like army started to come to his comment section, and he had someone sitting there deleting everything, there was a noticeable uptick of pictures of his daughter, pictures of his wife, pictures of his entire family, pictures. It was just like, look at me, I'm the family man. I'm the family man. And literally in one photograph, he had his daughter sitting in a chair on one of the TV sets he was visiting, as it really appeared as though she was a human shield to him.
We talked about that. That's so gross. Like,
yeah, it's gross.
Here's what I have to say. I am so protective of my son. Like, I never, if you noticed, you guys have watched us for a long time now. I never, if I've ever screwed up and mentioned his name, that's a screw up. I never mention him by name. I never post pictures of him on social media. That's like, social media that's not just limited, private to friends and family. I'm so, and I don't begrudge people who do. Like, there are a lot of people who obviously post pictures of their kids, and that's fine. Yeah, but I'll post baby pictures of him because that's not what he looks like anymore. But I certainly will never post contemporaneous pictures of him. No. And I think I truly hate people who exploit their kids. I don't like it. Like, I just don't like it. And I
think there's going to be a whole generation of people coming up that are going to be like, what did you do? Why did you put those things of me on the internet? Like, you know what I mean? I think, and that's starting to happen. There have been children from a couple influencers and stuff who have come forward and, been like, I don't talk to my mom anymore because of what she did and how she exploited me.
When I was on Fox, they had this cooking show. And it was like Cooking with Friends or something with friends. But like Fox and Friends had, the morning show had like a thing where you'd like come and cook some family recipe with your kid or whoever. And they always were like, and my son was 4 or 5 at the time. And they were like, bring him on. He's so cute. Bring him on. Cause I bring him to the studio with me. I was a single mom. I had to bring him to the studio all the time when I didn't have childcare. And they're like, bring him on. And I was like, nope. And they just didn't understand. They're like, well, why not? I was like, nope. I do not want anybody knowing what he looks like, what his name is, where to find him, how to locate him. I have enough people on social media trying to, come after me, don't need to drag my son into this.
No way.
And
yeah.
so
People
I
even knew the underground world of really harmful predators too online. People wouldn't
Yep.
do it if they really
I don't
knew.
let him post on social media, like nothing.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's going overboard and a little extreme, because the reality is, like, plenty of my friends do it, and that's fine. But so I say all of that to say, nothing pisses me off more than when somebody exploits their family for their own for their own personal gain. And you do not drag your daughter around. In fact, you don't post pictures with your daughter. In fact, if I were Mrs. Swalwell, even before this, or the wife of any member of Congress, and this probably would be a problem, because we all love to, they all love to put their kids on their literature, on pieces, and then their, digital
Christmas
and
cards and
commercials.
everything.
Christmas cards. Nope. This is why I'd never date a politician, by the way. Well, now I'm not dating anybody because I'm married, but this is why back in the day. That's why back in the day, I never would date a politician.
Yeah, I get it.
Because I was like, nope.
It's like dating a drummer. Don't do it. Don't do it. It's not worth it.
Also, because they spontaneously combust, like in Spinal Tap. Michelle, you and I have a little homework we have to do right now, so we got to go.
We do. We're recording the next episode of The Americans, and neither of us have watched the episode yet, so we need to go do that before we record. But we wanted to make sure that we came on and had, at least a short discussion about this breaking news, because it's significant. And wow, what a week. What a week. And thank you, Julie. Thank you, Julie, for supporting a survivor and for talking to her and for advocating for her when you've been on TV and had the platform to do so, because, I'm glad to know that she has people like you in her corner. So.
Oh, thank you. Shalana, yes, my son's name is on the internet. You are right.
I've seen it. Yeah.
I'm not the one who put him there. And it is what it is. One of my good friends, when he was born, who was a very, very, very wonderful person. Decided to tweet out congratulating him for being born, and he did it with the best of intentions, and that's how.
Not a bad person by any means, no.
Yeah, that this person is wonderful, so we don't. But he's a bit of a high-profile person. That's why. It got around. But anyway, not because of me. Okay. On that note, Michelle, you and I are going to go watch The Americans, and I will see you in a few.
We'll see everybody soon. Like and subscribe to the Mayday Network, folks, and you'll be the first to know breaking news and new programming and everything else. But until then, au revoir. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.